What if I told you that the thing you think you control the most, your own mind, is actually the hardest thing to master? It's an unsettling thought, right? We like to believe we're the captains of our thoughts, that we call the shots. But the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus would disagree. He'd say we're more like passengers in a storm, clinging to the rails, convinced we're steering the ship. And here's the kicker. That illusion of control might be the very thing holding you back. Epictetus had a simple but brutal idea. We don't control what happens to us, only how we respond. He put it bluntly, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Think about that for a second. How often do you waste energy trying to change things outside your power? Other people's opinions, traffic jams, bad weather, while neglecting the one thing you can change, your own perspective. You probably recognize that stubborn feeling of being right, that urge to dig in when life doesn't go your way. Many of us cling to familiar ideas because they feel safe, even when they make us miserable. Remember when you realized a childhood belief wasn't quite true? Maybe you thought monsters lived under the bed, or that being an adult meant having everything figured out. That moment of realization didn't hurt. It freed you. Epictetus would say we do the same thing now, just with more sophisticated illusions. We tell ourselves we need that promotion, that person's approval, or that perfect outcome to be happy. But what if that's just another version of the monster under the bed? Here's where it gets interesting. There's a natural tension between our instinctive thinking, the part that reacts, worries, and demands, and a quieter, deeper awareness that can observe those reactions without being ruled by them. You've felt this before. It's the difference between snapping at someone in anger and pausing to ask, why does this bother me so much? It's the space between a thought and your response to it. Epictetus called this the power of prohairesis, our capacity to choose our judgments. But you don't need the Greek word to understand it. It's the reason you can laugh at an old fear or regret a harsh word spoken in haste. The problem is, we forget this space exists. We get tangled in our own reactions, mistaking them for reality. Think about the last time you overreacted. Maybe someone cut you off in traffic and your blood boiled. In that moment, it felt personal, like the universe was out to get you. But later, with a little distance, you might have shrugged it off. What changed? Not the event, just your relationship to it. That's relaxed detachment, the ability to hold things lightly, to see them for what they are, not what your emotions them into. So how do we cultivate this? Epictetus wouldn't tell you to suppress your feelings or pretend nothing matters. Instead, he'd say, test your impressions. When something upsets you, ask, is this within my control? If not, your job isn't to change it, but to change how you see it. This isn't about being passive. It's about directing your energy where it actually makes a difference. You can't control the storm, but you can adjust your sails. This cracks open a door to a way of being that might feel foreign at first, but soon becomes second nature. It starts with seeing things simply, almost like a child does. Life is straightforward. Reactions are immediate. And the world feels like it operates in clear blacks and whites. We know what we like and what we don't, and our responses are quick and instinctive. This is where most of us begin, before the complications set in. It's comfortable here, predictable, but life has a way of nudging us out of this simplicity, whether we're ready or not. Then comes the confusing middle, where nothing feels clear anymore. This is the phase where we realize the world isn't as simple as we thought. Relationships get messy, work becomes overwhelming, and our old ways of reacting don't seem to work like they used to. You might be someone who resists change at first, clinging to the familiar even when it's not serving you. Most of us feel uneasy during transitions, and that's perfectly normal. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, called this the discipline of ascent, the moment where we're confronted with challenges that force us to pause and question our automatic reactions. It's uncomfortable, even painful at times, because it asks us to sit with uncertainty rather than rushing to judgment. This middle phase is where the real work happens, even if it doesn't feel like progress. Epictetus saw challenges as opportunities to practice discernment, to separate what we can control from what we can't. Knee-jerk reactions are easy. They're our brain's way of trying to resolve discomfort quickly. But thoughtful responses require something harder: patience, self-awareness, and the willingness to sit with discomfort. You may catch yourself pausing before reacting lately, noticing a shift in how you approach problems. It's subtle, but it's there. We start noticing that our old patterns don't fit as well as they used to, and that's a sign of growth, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Then, slowly, comes the new clarity. It's not a sudden epiphany, but a gradual unfolding, like the fog lifting after a storm. The things that once seemed overwhelming now feel manageable, not because they've changed, but because we have. We begin to see that our power lies not in controlling every outcome, but in how we choose to respond. Epictetus called this the difference between what's up to us and what isn't. The more we practice this distinction, the more natural it becomes. We start to recognize that our peace of mind doesn't depend on external events, but on our internal stance toward them. This journey isn't linear, and that's okay. Some days, we'll slip back into old habits, reacting without thinking. Other days, we'll catch ourselves mid-reaction and choose a different path. Most of us feel uneasy during transitions, but that unease is often the precursor to something better. You might be someone who resists change at first, but over time, you'll find that the discomfort was necessary to reach a deeper understanding. Through this discomfort, we begin to see the cracks in the way we've always done things. It's not that the old ways were wrong, they got us here after all, but somewhere along the line, they stopped fitting. Like a pair of shoes we've outgrown, what once felt comfortable now pinches with every step. And yet, we keep wearing them because the idea of going barefoot, even for a moment, feels terrifying. What if the ground is too rough? What if we stumble? But here's the thing. The ground was always rough. The stumbling was always part of the journey. The only difference now is that we're finally paying attention. At first, this awareness can feel like a burden. We notice the ways we've been holding ourselves back, the stories we've been telling ourselves that no longer serve us. Maybe it's the belief that we're not good enough, or that success belongs to someone else. Maybe it's the quiet resignation that things will never change. These thoughts cling like shadows, and for a while, it's hard to imagine life without them. But then, something shifts. We take a small step, just one, towards something new. Maybe it's setting a boundary, or saying no to something that drains us. Maybe it's finally admitting what we really want, even if it scares us. And suddenly, the shadows don't feel quite as dark. This is where the magic happens. Not in some grand, sweeping moment of transformation, but in the quiet accumulation of tiny choices. you'll likely find daily decisions coming easier, not because life gets simpler, but because you're no longer fighting yourself. The energy you once spent doubting or second-guessing starts to flow towards something better. Many notice old frustrations don't bother them as much. The coworker who always grated on your nerves, suddenly their quirks are just quirks, not personal attacks. The traffic jam that used to ruin your morning, it's just traffic. The weight of those old reactions lifts, and in its place is a lightness you didn't know was possible. It's not that we become different people overnight. We're still ourselves, just with a little more room to breathe. The things that used to feel like shackles, expectations, comparisons, the relentless chase for more, start to loosen. We begin to see them for what they are, choices, not commandments. And with that realization comes a kind of freedom we might not have even known we were missing. It's like finally taking off shoes that never quite fit, as Epictetus once described. The relief is immediate, but the real gift is the space to move, to explore, to step into something that feels true. Together we discover that this journey isn't about arriving at some perfect destination. It's about learning to walk in a way that honors where we are, even when the path is unclear. It's about trusting that the next step will appear when we're ready to take it. And most of all, it's about realizing that we've had the strength all along. We just needed to shed what was holding us back to see it. This is where the Barnum effect sneaks in, that curious phenomenon where general advice feels deeply personal. You might catch yourself nodding along, thinking, yes, that's exactly how I feel. And in a way, it is. Because while our stories are unique, the struggles are universal. The fear of not being enough, the longing for something more, the quiet hope that change is possible. These are threads that connect us all. And when we start to pull on those threads, the whole tapestry of our lives begins to shift. What's beautiful is how this shift ripples outward. The way we show up for ourselves changes how we show up for others. The patience we learn to extend to ourselves naturally extends to the people around us. The old triggers lose their power, not because we've become invincible, but because we've learned to meet them with something softer. Anger gives way to curiosity. Frustration gives way to understanding. And in that space, we find a deeper kind of connection to ourselves and to the world. This isn't to say the journey is always smooth. There will still be days when the old shoes tempt us, when the familiar discomfort feels safer than the unknown. But now, we know the difference. We know what it feels like to walk freely, and that knowledge becomes our compass. On the hard days, it's enough to remember that we've done it before. We've taken the steps, felt the ground beneath our feet, and survived. More than survived. We've thrived. And so, we keep going. Not because we have to, but because we want to. Because the alternative, going back to the way things were, is no longer an option. We've seen too much, felt too much, to pretend otherwise. The journey becomes less about reaching some distant finish line, and more about savoring the steps along the way. The moments of clarity, the bursts of laughter, the quiet mornings when everything feels right. These are the things that add up to a life well lived. Together, we discover that freedom isn't something we find out there. It's something we uncover within ourselves, layer by layer, like peeling back the pages of a book we've been writing all along. The words were always ours. The story was always ours. And now, finally, we're ready to read it. So here's to the discomfort that started it all. Here's to the courage to keep going. even when the path is unclear. And here's to the simple, profound joy of taking off shoes that never quite fit, and realizing we were meant to walk this way all along. The road ahead is yours, and it's beautiful.